And good evening, Minot. It is Tuesday afternoon. It's 2 p.m. We are here for another Minot Talks. Kyler Collom. Clearly, you can see I'm in Jonathan's seat. John Starr is out of town, but we are luckily joined by our friend, Mr. Leif Snyder. Leif, how you doing?
Good.
Great.
Except for the air to here, I had to chew through it.
Exactly. It's thick out there. It is smoky as all get. It is that haze definitely. It's noticeable out there. If you have lungs, anything like that, you are feeling it outside for a fact. So we're live today. Allegedly, you can hear us if you're watching. We can see you comment this time. We have all of the access. I know what I'm doing this time. If you can't hear us, I hope you'll let us know for sure. But we got a lot to go over. We're going to talk about last week's city council. We have a bunch of events from this last week. Talk about some upcoming things, and of course, there's a big debate tonight on too.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
Yeah, it's gonna on what AB. Well, I guess it's gonna be on pretty much every channel you could want, any news channel or anything. But we have former President Donald Trump debating Vice President Kamala Harris. Time is that 7 tonight? I think.
I don't even
something like that.
Yeah. To say,
Yeah.
It will be shoved in my face at some point. I know that
exactly. Regardless, you'll get all of it, no doubt about it tonight. We all are gonna, and if not tonight, by all means, all day tomorrow, you'll probably hear about on the news. But speaking of news, one big thing that happened for the weekend, I want to shout out our friend of the show, Cole Clementich. Minot State University, the Beavers won their second game of the year. They are 2-0. I don't know the last time that happened.
I don't either. I'm not a big football fan, but I know that's a trend is different than what I'm used
They've
to hearing.
now doubled their win total from last year. So I hope I'm hit the right button. Minot State. I love to see that they're doing that. And also, it wasn't just a easy. So the first game was a non-conference game. It was a lesser opponent theoretically. This week was against a conference opponent, Southwest Minnesota State. They ended up winning 42-9. So big game there. They dominated them defensively. They had like 3 defensive touchdowns. That was a great game to watch. I didn't watch it. I heard it was a great game to watch. Looked like it would have been fun if you're cheered for him there.
Good to hear.
Exactly. And speaking of MSU, you know what this week is for them?
I think it's homecoming.
It is homecoming week, and that means kegs and eggs this weekend at the everybody gets to go out, get fun time at about 8 in the morning, eat some eggs on stuff, and then a homecoming parade and homecoming game this week at the Herb Parker Stadium. Going to be a great event for Minot State. Hopefully they can start out 3-0. This will be one of the hyped up homecomings that I've seen for a while here.
And a parade, I believe, is happening.
There will be Saturday. They would always have that parade. Can't go wrong with that. Another thing this week coming up, Minotauros have their home opener. It is officially back into hockey season.
Yeah, I think they done an unofficial 1-1 record so far with a war in Watford where they play
get some exhibition stuff going. And I guess frankly, this could be an exhibition game too. But Minotauros play this weekend at the Mesa, 7:35 on Friday. Always a time. If you've never been to a Minotauros game, the sphere there is electric. Thing you want to talk about the presidential debate a little bit, or you want to get into just last week?
Well, let's bring on the debate.
All right, let's talk about it. we got former President Trump, who is a notoriously big debater. He's a bombastic person, probably a great way to put it, I think. I look forward to seeing him and Kamala Harris interact with each other. I don't know what to expect. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, if you tune into a train wreck, I don't know. What do you expect? Nobody knows.
Are we going to have a more reserved President Trump, or is he going to be the same old?
I don't know, but I don't think that's what we're expecting to tune into. I honestly don't know. If you really haven't made up your mind now, I would kind of like to talk to you, because how are you undecided at this point?
Especially if those are the two you're deciding between.
Now, one is new, I guess, to the ticket. So much from my prediction from the last that was muted.
Yeah, no one could hear us then. Hopefully they can hear us now.
I thought I knew a thing or two about national politics. I don't know anything about it. Like, nothing is predictable about anything.
No, it is. It's been an unprecedented year. There has been some incredible things that we've seen happen, things that I wouldn't have expected to happen, especially when it did. Biden would have dropped out. I think we all anticipated it would have happened sooner than it did. Then he drops out, and no other Democrat steps up to try to challenge us. The party just steps right in line behind her without hesitation. And then right in that same time frame, you have the assassination attempt from President Trump, which was an incredible thing that he survived that. It could have been a horrible incident. And that led a wild session of the OC and DNC at the end of July and beginning of August. Which I've been to watch those.
Highlights, if you want to call it
that. Yeah. The quote highlight reel of their speeches.
I don't know what else to say other than I'm not a fan of the two-party system. I mean, I have my moral compass and how I vote. That's why I vote the way I do.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: we don't have to get too in depth in this one, but would you rather see a third party that came up and was strong, or would you rather see an elimination of parties in general and everyone as an independent?
Well, I don't think can eliminate parties because essentially they are as private clubs. And you got
and I think
back to linear politics theory. At some point they come around and they kind of meet, which kind of does happen sometimes. But when you have two clubs, and the thinking was when it came to organizing versus political parties, was issue was moving further to the left and further to the right. Well, now what do you have? You've got in the middle that are kind of left hanging.
Yeah, you're starting to get into that horseshoe theory. Yeah. The middle is left, and all of a sudden everyone else getting down to the ends, and they're starting to seem more and more similar, with the exception of of some very, very big core issues. But you get past those few things, a lot of it's really similar now.
Yeah.
And who knows where that'll go? I'm sure obviously there's going to be any kind of elimination of any political parties. That's not nothing we anticipate happening by any stretch.
Yeah, please. Answer your question. A viable third party, I would love to see that. 4 or 5 would be even better.
Oh, 100%.
But the question there is viable, and there's no ground to be gained by the Democrats or the Republicans.
No, you would have
party.
You'd almost have to see a few people come together from both parties and their own thing.
Yep,
yeah,
that would
be
have to happen.
Because at this point, I don't think you could see someone building from the ground up and getting that structure in place in today's day and age.
No,
like not viably, like you said.
Yeah.
Fun times, national politics, big debate tonight. You tune in. One other thing before we get into city council, a little announcement we have here, Coden. You check us out next Monday night on the city during the city council meeting. We're going to go live at 5:15 p.m. Jonathan and I are from the studio here. We are going to live stream our live reactions of the city council meeting. So we will have the video playing live. Wes will be here. We will be pausing the video intermittently, going over some in-depth, some context for what they're talking about. We don't know how it's going to play out. We're excited to try it. We're excited to bring it to you. So make sure you tune in for that next Monday. Speaking of city council, fun meeting last week.
Another long one.
Yep. 3.5 hours about. There was an intermission and everything.
No, that's
no, not at all.
A lot of people like to see stuff discussed versus maybe 3 hours a little long. What's the alternative? A half-hour meeting where no one even knows what's passed?
Exactly.
So that's not good.
Because you love to see good discussion happening here.
Yes.
Like those are things that help build us to where we can get to better places, so you don't just see those constant 7-0 unanimous votes. Or if you do, you want the reasoning behind it at that point.
Yep. Exactly.
And one big thing they had last week, a couple dates on construction, and obviously this is kind of old news at this, but the 3rd Street Bridge is open again. It's always
I already feel it stopping in Arma. They're already busier.
Oh,
that's nice to hear. It's been a struggle for those people down there.
Oh, without a doubt. The summers had to have been tough for them. That intersection's well messed up down there too.
It still is a little bit, but they're getting there.
Yep.
And talking Rail Avenue could be open in November.
Yep. And then a couple of years since we that.
That will be a big improvement.
Oh, massively. That was my route to work all the time back before that closed. I have to get reused to using this point. But it's a great thorough way for that kind of northeast side has been unopened for, I feel like it's got to be 2-3 years point.
I don't think it's that long. They closed it this spring street, but the railway.
No, the railway, excuse me. Yeah, not the bridge. Yeah, railway.
With the flood control project out there. Yeah, it's been a long...
It's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute. So looking forward to that this November, hopefully getting railway open again. That's a couple of their big item had for some, that was in, I think, the manager's report. He had city engineer Lance Meyer come up and talk about that.
And for me, the good news of that is it 16th? The other side of town will be going under construction. And if we just think of that, if we had 3rd Street closed off and 16th, that north-south
Broadway
would have been a zoo.
Just wrecked at that point. Yeah. So it's clear we're going to get 3rd Street up again. Again, there's going to be some construction that needs to happen to it. Definitely make sure to check that out. I think they have to replace one of the pillars, I believe.
And I don't know if it's place it, but they have to repair it.
At
least.
They
took core samples of the pillars.
Yeah.
It meets the requirements. DOT, and it's okay. But there are no restrictions.
No, but it's an 88-year-old bridge.
Yes,
which is tip from up on what they either I read up on or they said this in the city council. I don't remember now, but in my notes, the typical lifespan bridge is between 50 and 75 years, especially one that was made in that time frame. So the fact it's gotten to 88, obviously it's had a lot of upkeep over that time, but the fact it's gotten here is great.
That's actually quite the bridge. It's over 100 feet long.
Yeah.
And this is weird trivia stuff here. But for this time, it was the only bridge in North America crossed the same body of water 3 times.
Really? Fair enough. That is one of those fun little trivia things. You love to see that. I also love to see that they're looking at eventually replacing it too.
Yes.
Funding won't be a whole other issue. It's a couple down the line, but it will be good to actually get a different bridge in there that we don't have to. Not that saying that we're worrying about it now by means, but not that there won't be any concerns at that stage.
I don't drive across it, obviously. Can't drive. But even walking across it as a pedestrian, you notice when the vehicles hit the joints, it's kind of a jolt. You
can feel
there's and that's the decking. It's nothing to do with the support structure. It's 88 years old.
Yeah, it has its age without a doubt. And good to get that update though. Glad that there's some progress happening with everything with 30 Railway Avenue, that whole area. Good to have it open up again.
Yeah, to help out.
No doubt about it. Then go on that, they kind of transitioned into the consent item. Most of it passed. I think there was 14 items total. They pulled 2. One of them was, I thought was kind of interesting. I think it was Count Fuller pulled it. It was about the sidewalk, curb, and gutter with some special assessments that the city had going around town. There were sidewalks in need of repair. And from what I could tell, that is something that is in the city ordinances to be charged to the homeowner. And I believe that's what they were discussing there, and just a project that was going forward, and they had to discuss it. And I know Councilman Fuller voted against it. What are your thoughts on that one? You remember watching that?
And remember, traditionally, sidewalks are always special assessed.
Yeah.
Always whether some developers put them in and held off, it doesn't really matter. They're always special assessed. I'm guessing it had to do with a 20% administrative fee. Probably. I can't read into why he voted the way he did, but when you charge a fee to cover your city salary that you're already being paid to, I'm thinking it had something to do with that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I think a lot of always have to make homeowner for that bill too, especially with all their tax costs associated with the city of Minot right now, and especially those estimates are coming in.
Those engineers are already paid via general fund property taxes for their salaries. So where's this coming from? No, by law, they can charge that.
Of course. So. And they will, and it's going to happen. So expect some sidewalk, curb, and gutter repairs soon in town in some of those areas. And first big item of that maple diversion.
Nobody expected that to be easy.
Yeah, and it's been something that's been in the works for 5-6 years now. So if you know knowledge of the maple diversion project, in very layman terms, what it's doing is it's taking the river and it's redirecting it along effectively what's 2nd Avenue west.
Yep. Just as a public library.
Yeah, exactly. That road, that 2nd Avenue that's just north of the public library, it's going to be rerouting the river effectively along where the river tracks are there now. And so maple diversion is a plan that they're coming up with to effectively build that version build the dikes and then reroute the roads. So with that, unfortunately, there's some eminent domain that will be involved. And the biggest argument is about how much and to what extent.
And the big holdup, no surprise, has been railroad.
Yeah.
Railroads aren't easy to get along with.
No, they have their own stipulations. They have a lot, but I know one thing, they finally figured the bridge they want to get done. So because the railway tracks that are going to be going through there, they're end up going over the river at some point. And from what I could tell from their conversation, there was discourse over how the bridge would be done. Sounds like it ended up, they went with a pontoon kind of bridge, so it's going to be a system, which for the trains, that's a very common thing, I guess.
Yeah, I don't even know about that.
Yeah. Or
with
pontoon,
the temporary
pontoon system.
The temporary shoe fly.
Yeah.
That's a I never heard.
Without a doubt. And I'm glad that they, I think it was Rob who used his words, appeased the railroad and got that aspect done, which it's unfortunate that we should do that, but it's effectively a necessity. What choice have?
If it were them, I don't think they'd want any flood control. I mean, I can remember the 2011 flood, and they were running trains through a flood.
Yeah, they didn't care. As soon as they
just want to move.
Yeah. I mean, this is your thoroughway in the Great Northern Railway section of the country too. There's a massive amount of rail travel that goes in it, if you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you want to be full, because eminent domain, while the government has the ability to do so, it's something that has them to be very unpopular. And there was a couple dozen plans that they had the ability to propose and that they'd went through. Like, there was a lot of options on the table here. The one they went with is going to end up rerouting 2nd Avenue, that you can turn left off of 2nd Avenue. Is it 6th Street or 8th Street?
6th
Street. Yep, 6th Street down there. And so you can, which right now it's right turn only thing. So that'll help with some of that. However, they're going to have to weave that road through. There are 11 total properties affected by this current proposal. I think it's 7 homes, one on a duplex, something like, or a fourplex, they said. So you have 11 total residences, but properties total. Those are going to would be theoretically purchased by eminent domain as of right now. Construction supposed to start in 2026. You have enough time if they're to go through this.
I suppose. And remember, this is 11 properties in addition to the ones that have already been
exactly. This is
purchased.
Yeah, nothing about what's
so these are 11
done.
New.
Yeah, this is the next phase of this.
And you're right. It's tough because you're taking people's homes. Homes aren't cheap now, and people put a lot into them. So it's a touchy subject. And
luckily, at least in theory, I know city staff had came up at the city council and said that, hey, worst case, there are laws that we have to go by, have to adhere to, that they're going to do everything in their power to get the homeowner just compensation. What that actually ends up being is a different story. At least on the surface, they're going to do everything in their power to leave that homeowner, for lack of better terms, no more in debt than they were prior.
Yeah. For the viewers, maybe somebody 4 or 5 years bought a house at 2%.
Exactly.
Well, now what have rates done?
Yeah, they're
6-7%.
7%.
Just a price to buy you out doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be better off.
Yeah.
I mean,
they have to take into account those interest rates.
They have to buy down that interest rate view
with excess amounts, so that way
make it an apple.
Exactly. And there was a lot of talk amongst the council at that point. They went forth a lot. One thing that came up from Ryan Ackerman of Ackerman Estfold, federal funding. There's a lot of federal funding associated with this project, but there's no necessarily any timetable on when we have to sit by. So if they want to end up, which they are, spoiler alert, tabling this motion and reading the plans, it's not like they have to get this done by last 2. They have time to make this work. So just to get into that next part, they are going to table it for a month, and they're going to work on getting a special session set up so they can get those other plans presented. They can see the other option. some of them are going to have more houses affected, some are going to have less, but there's different variances on how the rerouting of 2nd Avenue works. I look forward to seeing.
It's going to be a special meeting, and I kind of like the idea. Yeah, I can say that because I'm not on council, right? but then council gets to make an informed.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's $61.5 million in federal funds indexed for inflation.
Yeah.
So that, okay.
They're planning on that.
Now, I don't think we should wait another 2 years, but let's take time and make a good, viable decision.
Yeah. Like I understand that this is an domain of the property. This is a bigger picture thing that I'm not into here, but you have to allow the property owners ample time to figure out their situation. But I've mentioned this in the past. This is just a thing that feels dragging on.
Flood protection is,
but hey,
it's a big elephant, and yeah, one fork at a time. I get it.
This is the last major part of the first of 3 phases in the front project. And when this is done, they'll move on to phase 2, which is a lot more of central and downtown, and then phase 3, which is a lot of the eastern side of town. I think phase 2 is going to be shorter, theoretically, from what it sounded like, but they still have to finish 1. And
yeah, and what this does is it affects a lot of Minot, because the river is still going to follow the route.
Yeah.
Diversion, the closure system will then close it off during times of flood.
Yeah.
So it's protecting quite a large portion of the town.
Yeah, no, probably hundreds of homes. If I was slightly better at what I'm doing, I would have the picture pulled up so we could show it to you on screen. Didn't think of that, but you can see, like, there's the whole wraparound where the river goes. This is diverting past. There's probably hundreds of homes that are being saved.
And probably the worst affected areas, I would think.
Likely, that's where I lived before the flood, was a blocks away from Lincoln School. So likely, had this happened, I probably wouldn't go at that point. We would have still been there, but it is what it is. Flood has took a toll on everyone. We're in the next phase, and hopefully when they get this done, we'll be able to settle those people. Everyone will be good over there at that point.
And the flood insurance will help.
Immensely. But hey, back in the day, it was fixed. You didn't have to get it, right?
So we were told.
But yeah, they ended up making a motion to table that a month from now. I believe it's the first meeting of October. They'll discuss this again, and there's a good chance sometime end of September they'll end up getting a special session scheduled. We'll have that ready to go, and they will present all of the options there. They end up doing a special session. They could have finessed a way around it to doing it. Having the patient done outside of a city. So I could see that happening. I assume it'll be a special session from the way the
good news is a $95 million project.
Yeah.
And not good federally 61.5 covered.
And that's all you said. It's all prorated. It's all secured. We have it set and ready to go. It's just, we have to use it. And that moved on to the next one, which was an for Sam Smith contracts for flood control property acquisitions, another couple properties that they were going to acquire. They ended up effectively just tabling this as well, because I think this one relied on former to pass for this one to go. If I read
related, so it made sense to
wait till the other one gets added
at the same time.
Yep. Which, so not much happened there. I think that passed now, so expect more updates from that come October. One big thing that happened at that for any of the personal appearances, there was Visit Minot, a big presentation. Visit Minot is the main tourist industry and provider in town. They do all of our effectively they're the marketers for the city. They market the city. Their job is to get people into Minot tourism. However, they made a presentation about over the last, I think, 3 years post-COVID, they've helped recoup some of that lost value from inflation. And the thing was, so in 2021, they had $477,000 allocated to them to.
It was a contract.
It was a contract.
Services.
Yeah. Because most of that was money that was expected to be spent. It was a reallocation to them, so they were being paid back for money they would assume to be spent. And fast went from 2021 December of last year, 12/23. They ended up using all but about $90,000, which They save money. So what do we do with that 90,000?
Now, here's the thing. This is I like about this, and
Uh-huh.
I think Stephanie Schoenrock presented.
Yeah.
Most government contracts, they just would have spent it and built.
Yeah.
Well, here this money's left over, and now they're saying, hey, could we change what we're going to do with this? This money's already allocated to us. It was already budget said, here you go. Now we're going to do XYZ instead of you know.
Exactly.
I think that's a pretty good thing.
No, 100%.
That's official government.
I think that's what you should look for. And so now they're coming back with an update service agreement where they're asking for that last 95,000 that go through the end of this year. Just they want that, and so going all over. But in her presentation, Stephanie said that they had already pre-budgeted into their that they would have this, and if they don't, however, they fully expect because of how they operate. They're even if they don't end up getting this extra money, everything they have planned is still going to go ahead. They have done a successful job at implementing what they do. They, like she said, they run conservative, so they would be okay if they weren't to have gotten that at 95,000. But
something we're not used to hearing.
Exactly. You love to see it, don't you? Some good government, effective, efficient government, thing that always seen in not just Minot, but anywhere, especially in today's day and age.
And the thing I really liked was the original 477,000 was a services agreement that was expected. They were expected to deliver a $10 million impact. And they spent less, not essentially less than $100,000, and they got a $13.9 million impact.
Yep.
So they spent less and over delivered.
Underspend, overachieve. It's what you want to see.
Yep.
That is the peak of it. And so I guess alternatively, if you had to go all out at that point, you could say you could use that 90,000 as some kind of a tax reimbursement towards citizens then.
You could, in a way, but it's already been allocated.
Exactly. It's because it's already in the refunds too.
Right. It's sales tax dollars.
Yeah.
So how do you?
Exactly. No, I that's one of the things people will say. You see the money saved, so expect to come back and help you in some kind of a tax easement or something. And obviously, I mean, who doesn't want that? But sometimes it just doesn't quite work out that way.
Handing money back isn't easy.
No. That's why when you give something to the government, it's hard to get it back. But that ended up saying unanimously. So they did get that funding for the rest of the year, that 9,000. And that led to the second part of her presentation, which was a new source of funding for Visit Minot in the sense of what's called a leisure fee. So it's $1 fee for all hotel stays that are 30 days or more. So anyone that's staying in a hotel for over at a time, there's $1 a day tacked on to that, and that profit or that income goes to Visit Minot then. And do you think that's a good idea? Because it's a good revenue. Do you think it's a more consistent revenue source?
Well, we're talking about the extended stay fee.
Yes.
Now this is where it gets weird because state law comes in and says who can benefit from this, who can charge it. That's the other thing. And really, it's only the Convention and Visitors Bureau type, Visit Minot type people that can.
So if this is the only one that could even try to do something like this. And
for people that don't know, there are some issues in collecting taxes from these hotels that stay or long stay. So it got a little interesting.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of discussion. I know it was brought up. If you implement this, how are you going to be able to enforce it? Are hotels not going to just be able to work around it? Like, if you have,
or just not pay it? Some of them don't.
Exactly. They just, oops. But would you be able to work around? You have someone you know is going to be there for 40 days. Could you book them instead of having a 40-day block? You could them in 2 20 blocks. And without, I believe it was Tim Wakefield said they do. There's an audit that goes on of all of the hotels in town every year. So theoretically, you can't get away with it. But how good is the auditing?
You're never going to stop from trying to cheat.
Exactly.
You're just not.
No, there's always going to be one that tries to find a way.
Yeah.
It's a fun time, but they did pass that as well. And I know the reason she wanted that. Visit Minot doesn't have a ton of revenue sources. They have the hotel fee that's already in place. It's like a 3% fee on all hotel stays or something like that. Don't quote me on it's close, but I know they wanted a more consistent source of revenue for them.
It's consistent with other communities too. You go to a concert in Fargo, stay in a hotel. Yeah, they ding you. It's nothing new, but that's how they generate some of their revenue. And why not? If they get people to stay in hotels, dine at restaurants, here you go. That makes sense to me.
Do you think it's good for the city of Minot?
Well, yes and no. In some ways, I don't like taxes at all. I mean, who does? But nothing's free either.
And theoretically, this should help boost that income into the city, bring in other revenue dollars.
Right. And here's the thing. If I owned a restaurant or if I owned a hotel, operated that, I want people staying there. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't be up to my neighbor's property to fund the bill. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
We are past 7-9. So if you're watching this and decide to stay for over 30 days in a hotel town, just be wary. There'll be an extra $1 a day tacked onto that bill at the end. But fun times. It was that passed. Then I know after that's when they held the intermission and then came back to personal appearances, which I believe there was 4 people at the personal appearances, which is first off great. Love to see community interaction at the personal appearances section at the city council meeting. It's something that should happen as possible. If you have any voices of any concern you want to voice, you'll be able to go there and let it out. I think that's one thing is fantastic, and I love to see. However, those 4 personal appearances took about an hour and a half?
Oh, I don't know.
Over an hour.
It turned into quite the session.
Yep. Before we get into the one, let me mention there was 4 people. There was a couple that had some interest on some tax questions. The last one was a gentleman who lived in South Minot, and he was concerned of some washout situations.
Yes.
There was a lot of water runoff that was going one point next to his property. Now, after a couple of years, it's starting to go through his property, and it's just encroaching closer and closer. And not sure what this will do, but it was a very interesting situation, and it makes you wonder if this is something that's going on elsewhere too.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with flood control or something. I only caught part of that. Mm-hmm. That was my intermission break. But I remember watching it a little bit later, and you can't have that going on.
Yeah,
it's affecting his property in a big way.
Yeah, and he had pitched, and there was some heavy
wash. Yeah. So I don't know who's that's going to fall to. Somebody in the Service River Joint Board, perhaps. But it needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, no, that's something you don't want to see private residents having to deal with city, especially when it comes to something along flood control, something that should only be benefiting citizens, not
right.
And maybe it's not all flood control. Maybe there's other issues there that the city's going to look into, but don't know if we'll end up seeing more on that. Maybe we'll try to keep an eye on that for you here at the Dakotan. But that was an interesting one. But the long one, there. You want to go ahead?
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to start saying that shock some people. I agree fully with the mayor's statement.
Sure.
And if anybody has seen me before speak to city council during public comment, they know I don't always agree with the mayor. On this, I totally do. You cannot subvert the process. Mm-hmm. The neighborhood, the other citizens involved, they have every right to be notified of the changes, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. However, I'm going to go on a limb here.
Go ahead.
And say that planning, zoning, inspections needs to get their ducks in a row. Mm-hmm. I have heard nothing but inconsistency.
So you think this should have been this should have been someone should have found out about this sooner?
And what this is involving is someone moving out of
a
trailer park.
Yeah.
if you want to call it that, moving their manufactured home to a private lot, and a neighbor complained, which they have every right to do. For looking at the details of it, after I was contacted saying, hey, I got this issue here, and this is before the city council meeting, I said, okay, I'm going to look into it. It's kind of convoluted, and I'm sorry, we're going to be taxed as we are. I mean, it's the Cadillac theory, right? If you're driving a Cadillac, you want plush, you want comfort, you want...
You're buying a Cadillac, you want the highest end.
You know, you go to a steak dinner, you're not eating at McDonald's, you want a good meal.
Yeah.
If we're going to be like this, city services should be on top of things. Now, I'm sorry, watching Mr. Bergstead speak, I think he's telling the truth. I think planning and zoning has given him, I don't know what's going on. Okay, no, here. Without a doubt, a building permit should have been filed, a moving permit should have been filed, and probably a demo permit. But here's the problem. Mr. Bergstead says, no, I didn't need a demo permit, which makes sense if the original landowner who they purchased from did the demo of the original house. Now, you get into zoning.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest issues.
This is the issue that drives me nuts, because this neighborhood, I went out there and I rode my bike all around. There's no curb and gutter. So now we've got people saying, well, they should have a traditional basement or a traditional foundation for this to work. Okay, there's no curb and gutter. So to me, that doesn't make sense, because it's a chance to collect water.
Sure.
Should it be on concrete piers versus block? Yes, absolutely. Of course. It should be. Now, here's where it gets really weird. They purchased this lot, which is one of two next to each other, and it's zoned R4, which doesn't exist anymore. The equivalency to that is heavy residential instead of R1. I looked at the zoning map. Everything around this is R1, except for across the street and 7 lots to the south, it's zoned M8, mobile home, manufactured home. But 4 lots to the south, across the street, and 4 lots to the south, it's zoned R1. You pull up the assessor's report, there's a manufactured house in R1.
Okay. So what's the issue with this one then?
There's like maybe 10 houses on here that are manufactured homes. Now, also looking out there, this home improvement, 70% of the properties out there. So if it has the proper setback, now here's the thing about R1. On the city ordinance, and you pull it up, it says that if it meets these 7 requirements, it can be, it's not excluded as a manufactured home. Which to me, it will. Like their roof, I believe it's a 412 pitch. It's a certain size. It's this is why people get frustrated with and I'm sorry, we had the Popeyes fiasco. We got like planning and zoning needs to get their ducks in a row. This has to stop.
Like, oh, the Popeyes building is okay, but they
how
built a double drive through it, so now it's 5 feet too far over, kind of deal.
Like I do see a problem with it. Now, I didn't have as much conversation with these as I wanted to. I wanted to talk to my phone, but as of the latest I've understood, they were asked to file an application for either a zoning change or maybe it was a intended land use change. File an application. The Bergstead asked to file that application, and an $1,100 fee.
Jeepers.
So if city council is listening, waive that fee, first of all. That's ridiculous. How can you ask someone to, well, you're zoned R4 now, you're going to have to change that, but we don't have R4. It doesn't exist. Like, what are we doing? Now, here's the other thing. Is this flood related? Because there was a lot of discussion about it's an emergency situation. Of course it's flood related. No, it's not.
It's not
not
directly
immediate
because of a natural
directly
disaster.
flood.
Yeah.
But the reason that these lots are jacking their rent by 40% is because we're losing inventory due to flood control.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're losing trailer parks. Literally,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
So now all other trailer parks are taking in an excess amount. And so because of that, they're all raising rate.
And these people thought they were doing the right thing by, hey, let's acquire some property. We can move our house out there that I think will be accept an improvement over the neighborhood. Now, I will admit, I was riding my bike out there and somebody noticed, says, hey, what? And I appreciate that, because if people are looking out for the neighborhood, what are you doing? I mean, just person in that neighborhood.
Sure.
Hey, good on you. You know, I'm not trying to steal anything or who knows. And we had a great conversation. But here's the thing. Like, if you go out there and look around, there's manufactured homes all over the place.
Sure.
Now, yes, one does not, I don't want to get into the details, but Samuel's absolutely right. You cannot put this on a perimeter station. The C channel or I beams that run down the middle of each section, a double wide, call it that, need to be supported from underneath.
Yep.
So yes, concrete piers.
Yeah, it's not on a self-supporting.
Right. Yep. Concrete piers make sense. Like, I don't see what the big issue is. When you pick up the phone and call the planning zoning, like, try and get a straight answer, because I don't think that's going on.
Have you ever tried yourself? Have you had issues directly?
Yes, I have. But my eyes south. I used to put in a lot of windows and do a lot of remodel work. And I made sure I called every time, because I don't want to get burned, not having not filing the right permit. And every time I was told, is the window the same size, just deeper? I says, yes, because if you cut a larger window, you're changing things structurally.
Okay.
And they said, yeah, you need a permit for that. Now, every time I called, because I didn't want to get burned. Or if you, like in this wall for concrete here, if I cut that concrete out, you're changing things structurally, you need a permit.
Okay.
But if you're changing the height of the window, essentially, then you didn't need one. And
that's interesting.
What the interesting thing about egress windows is people think they're to get out. They're not. They're stipulations to get a firefighter in full gear in.
Okay.
So that's the other issue.
Fair.
So if people are wondering, why can't I consider this a bedroom? That's typically why.
You got to have that really sized window, and it's not just for you. It's so people
a firefighter with a tank can get in.
Look at that, folks. Learn some new stuff every day here at Minot Talk on the Dakota. And big egress window deep dive, Mr. Leif Snyder. I love it. But no, it works, because you can wrap it back into what is so you need the permits, without a doubt. It's something that has to happen. But why is it seemingly as excessively complicated as it is?
Well, and here's where I from that tangent. Bergstead was saying they have the bond that's required for the demo. So how is it the city knows about that but doesn't know about the rest?
So then, yeah, if the city, if there wouldn't have been a complaint filed when it was, when
would they even have known?
Yeah, or when would they doubt at that? At what stage do they learn? Do they, when asked to have water and sewer hooked up? Is that when it happens? I don't. At what point does it progress then?
I don't.
So it's probably good that it was figured out now before. I mean, it's unfortunate that they're placed as they are at this point, but it's for the best that it was out now. So this way they can at least know what steps they have to take, as fortunate, expensive as it is.
Now think about this. What if they wouldn't have known, and they say, hey, you can't live here, and they condemn the place?
Yeah. On the flip side, like, at least it is trying to find a silver lining in that somehow.
I feel for him. I really do.
It's a terrible situation all around. Could they have done more? Probably. Could they have made this an easier process? Probably.
Yes, but wake up that phone. The city needs the customer service skills to walk people through it.
Yeah, you can't throw big zoning ups at people that have never dealt with before.
And here these people trying to do the right thing.
They're doing what any person should want to do. You want to move up. You want to get a piece of property. You move your home. On top of that, in the economy we're living in today, why? That's something you should want to encourage, if anything. Obviously, you don't want just a trail in the middle of, town, but at the same time, you should want people to move up. You should want to encourage that.
And what did the housing study tell us? We don't have enough low-income housing.
Exactly.
Have enough affordable.
No, there's
So
not a lot
there you
of
go.
low income and not a lot of small families, like
Yep.
just not like first family people that are staying out, first time home buyers. This is something that we could wrap into a whole picture. Like, do you want, instead of having people move out of the trailer parks, do you want to have more trailer parks and more houses? I mean, that's the alternative. Is that a good look? I don't know. I personally don't like apartments. I've never enjoyed living in them, but if that's the only affordable way to do it, and that's what you're going to start see coming up, just more apartment buildings instead of first time home buyer homes. Is that the look you want?
Yeah. Well,
because I know those single,
but R4 doesn't exist anymore, so I don't know.
of course, to get all the way back to the zoning part of it. That's a mess of a situation, though. It's unfortunate. Hopefully it'll get resolved, and at least the proper people in the right channels know about it. So hopefully something will happen for those people.
I hope is resolved, and knock on wood, I think it will be.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Then following that massive hour time frame for personal appearances, because obviously this wasn't a normal personal appearance. This was something that needed to be brought before city council, and it was such a late thing, it wasn't in time to get put on the agenda. So this is when they had to do it. And just want to make sure, sorry about the sound being not great there. Hopefully you can hear us a little better now. On top of that, so that was the last their big personal appearance thing. There was only one real thing that the city went into after that. They were discussing a parking ordinance and what to do with it. So having trailers or campers or anything along those lines parked on a city street for over 48 hours. I think it was 48 hours of the current ordinance. And if it's parked in the same spot for over 4 hours, it can be roofed by the city. And they were go ahead.
I really don't have a problem with it. And I'll tell you why. It's actually, versions of this have been on the city books for a while. And this is back a drive, so it's a little different. But like detaching your boat or your camper and leaving it there was a question, because in my neighborhood, we would have somebody who would detach his trailer the wrong side of the street and have it facing the other way.
Okay.
And so there was no reflective material, and you'd be driving at night and all of a sudden, oh my God, there's a trailer there.
You gotta go over a little bit.
So it does become a little bit of a problem. They went on to just, I don't know where I'm at on a lot of this, but
yeah, they talked about it a lot. It was frankly no action item, so nothing that they would have done from that Tuesday night is something that they would have no lasting effect. And so all they ended up deciding on was to have city staff look more directly into, I think, one of the plans they had going forward, which was to, instead of having it 4 hours, change it to 24 hours. So there's no immediate changes coming to the ordinances here. It's just one of those things that they had to discuss. There's a path going forward. It's one of the things you have to weigh what you're telling your citizens to do versus, is this something that should be like an emergency responder kind of sense? Is this something where, if worst case opening on the street, are EMS vehicles able to get through? And it's an interesting discussion, to say the least.
But it's important too.
It is. It's necessary.
It really is, because you can say what if all the time, but what ifs do eventually happen.
And it is always possible. A vast difference between possible and plausible.
Yep.
And even if it's very unlikely, it is still almost always possible. And that ended city council last week, a 3.5 hour long marathon. But also, I think, as we've shown, there was a good stuff that happened.
Yeah, that was good discussion.
It was everything that happened was pretty much necessary. It was good talk, good discussions, great presentation from Sept at Minot. great presentation, frankly, from Ackerman Esfel over the maple diversion. I really look forward to looking at their future presentation where they go through all the plans more in depth. I would love to see, instead of just as they had it in display, they had them all layered in the background of their slideshow. So it would be nice to actually look at those all. I'm sure they're available somewhere. I would bet almost anything on it, but those things. It was a great meeting, though.
Yeah, I look forward to the special meeting with the different versions of flood control options, because they come back or not. I don't know.
Yeah, and that could end up being the one that ends up being the best option after discussing it further. We'll have to just look at that and play that one by ear.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get going, one other thing that's been happening, people are getting their tax estimates in the mail.
Those little presents in the mail.
Yeah, everyone
now
loves
remember
that.
that's worst case scenario. They can go down.
Mm-hmm.
But
who knows?
I don't
know. They're definitely going around. Remember, that's the county ones, right?
Well, the county is the tax collector,
yeah, of
so
course.
they send them out.
Yeah, it comes from the county.
Well, sometimes they're the tax collector,
right? How does that work?
Well, if you think about it, we've heard a lot about franchise fees, right? Well, is that just a tax? If the city says you're going to provide this service in the city, you need to pay this.
Mm-hmm.
MDU, XLNE, Midco, SRT, they're just going to pass that on to the consumers. So it makes them the tax collector.
Yes, almost certainly. That's what you see. And it's the unfortunate thing. You almost never see major corporations and businesses like that except a drop in profits. And obviously, as a business owner, you don't lose your profit margin. Always keep it increased. But when you have something like this that happens, it's an unfortunate thing, because it seems like a vast majority of time you do see those costs end up brought back onto the citizens.
Yeah, it's going to be passed through. I view that as turning the service provider into the tax collector. That's how I see it.
Just as a middleman at that point. But what are the upsides of that then?
He gets more revenue. I'm not saying that upside. You're not going to quote me on that.
That's just the outcome. Maybe.
Right.
Better put it there. But it's something that obviously it's not a official proposal for the 2025 budget, but it's something that they're discussing and will be brought up. Could be a proposal for.
I'm hearing rumbles, so I get my 2 cents in.
Exactly. It's relevant because it's that start of the tax season. It's still the budget season, and it's something, even if not this year's, they will almost certainly be looking at in the future.
And to circle back to public comment and how important it is to step up, I've been known to speak my mind a few times, but I can't remember the gentleman's name. It was a few meetings ago. Got up and talked about the franchise fees. I felt it unfair.
Yep.
So if you don't think City Hall listens, they might not, but can speak your mind.
But you at least have every opportunity to go forth and speak to them.
Yep.
They don't have to answer. Sometimes they'll just sit there in silence, and sometimes they'll have a full conversation with you.
I have yet to have a conversation.
Oh, that's.
They were kind of silent.
I got a feeling they might not have liked what you brought up. But like last Tuesday, City President Mark Janser is leading the meeting. Mayor Tom Ross was out of town. He did with a couple of and that happened quite a bit at that one. I think the last 3 personal appearances, the long one we spoke in depth about, one lady who was with the Sons of Liberty who had some questions on the tax budget, how to budget, and then with the last gentleman that was talking about some washouts. I think they had good discourse with all of them, and I love to see that from City Council. So big shout out to City Council for that. Thank you guys for being. I put the claps thing on. I did it, guys. I'm proud. Great show, Leif. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? You want to get on a soapbox for a minute?
I think I covered that.
Well, perfect, Leif. I'm glad, at least, even if audio might not have been great, you could all hear us for the entirety. So we got you there. But Leif, thanks so much for coming again. I appreciate that you were able to come and do this with me.
Anytime.
Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. It's been another episode of Minot Talk. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, mydakotan.com, for all kinds of updates with news and future podcasts that will be coming out. And as always, thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your day.